I didn't even understand why this was an X-file until you had me exhume the body of Lawrence Rockefeller, and it turns out he doesn't have DNA consistent with any living thing anywhere on the planet.
What do you expect? These billionaires, they don't just go around giving money, trying to save the earth, trying to bring the truth to people. You know there's always a hidden agenda. Take a look at this. It got left on my doorstep. It shows a billionaire meeting with the president's wife. And here's the kicker. It was a Rockefeller, Lawrence Rockefeller. And do you see that book in her hand? Are We Alone? They're discussing UFOs and disclosure. Don't you think that's kind of odd?
Do you know how much Lawrence Rockefeller sucks? The other Rockefellers hated him. They named him after a girl.
The involvement of any Rockefeller always signals something, well, more hidden about the agenda. And of course, it's a very powerful dynasty, and in his generation, there were 5 brothers. Nelson, you know, was vice president. He was involved in politics and also agriculture. The oldest of the Rockefeller brothers, John D. Rockefeller III, dedicated his entire career to population control and to eugenics. The youngest, David Rockefeller, is a famous banker involved in predatory capitalism overseas, and also the deep collusion between the Bilderberg Group and the Anglo-American Alliance. He's a shadow banker with a lot of power. And then there's Lawrence Rockefeller.
Lawrence Rockefeller's first forays into ufology started sometime in the late 80s through Dr. Cecil B. Scott Jones, a parapsychologist and former U.S. Navy commander who had worked as naval attaché in Asia and at the Naval Scientific and Technical Intelligence Center. Mr. Rockefeller backed many UFO-related projects in the period between the late 80s and 2000.
They want to open the doors on the black government stuff, and they want to cancel the funding.
Mully, we're not going to find your sister. She's either kidnapped by aliens or dead. They've told you this like 15
Scolder,
times.
we're going to look for my sister in another episode. They want to declassify the holy grail of documents. If the government declassifies these documents, the truth will finally be out there. This could be our big break. About Roswell, about everything. The black sites, Area 51, the chip in your brain.
But Mully, if Rockefeller is such a globalist, hell-bent on world depopulation, then why would he care if people knew the truth about aliens? It doesn't make sense.
Maybe he knows something and it's weighing on his conscience. Go back to the end of World War II, Scolder. He bought the controlling stake in Eastern Airlines. He helped to set up McDonnell Douglas, one of the biggest military contractors in the world. If there's any secrets about UFOs, it's in the aerospace industry. Lawrence Rockefeller lived his life unbelievably close to the secrets of aerospace. He was an early investor in aviation, funding Eastern Airlines from the 1930s and partnering in the foundation of McDonnell Aircraft, later McDonnell Douglas, one of the nation's largest and most important military contractors. As a venture capitalist, Lawrence funded unusual, experimental, high-technology projects, often cloaked behind national security clearance, including so-called new defense and space defense-related firms, as well as supersonic engineering, extraordinary weapons and space techniques, and the Viking rocket, modeled after the German V-2 rocket, designed by Goddard. Lawrence held Dr. Edward Teller, father of the hydrogen bomb and an original backer of the letter to FDR about the possibility of an atomic bomb in 1939, as a personal advisor. Teller opposed all weapons test ban treaties, warning that weapons development must not be checked in any way. Also advising Lawrence Rockefeller was retired Air Force Colonel Teddy F. Walkowitz, president of the National Aviation and Technology Corporation and a board member of the MITRE Corporation, who played a, quote, leading role in weapons research and development at the time of the Great Conflict, when Teller overcame J. Robert Oppenheimer and carried the day for the development of the H-bomb, and forcing Oppenheimer out of government on a loyalty charge. If there are any secrets about the role of weapons and aircraft related to UFOs, extraterrestrial contact, and the Air Force, Rockefeller has long been in a good position to discover them. So he has had very interesting and compelling ties to the possible knowledge of UFO aircraft and whatever cover-up may have gone on between the Air Force and the shadowy powers that be.
And after a while, I wound up going to my management and telling them, you know, you're not going to believe this, but the UFOs are clearly coming from someplace else. They're clearly manned or humanoided, and the only question is whether we're going to figure out how they work before Lockheed or after. And so as a result of that, the company at that time, which has now of course been bought by Boeing, over several years put in about $500,000 worth of research effort under my direction to study gravity control techniques and also analyze UFOs.
They have black site clearance, top secret knowledge. He wants to get out there something that's been wrestling with him since probably the 60s.
What you're saying doesn't make sense, Molly. That would mean he has a conscience.
No, he likes to play both sides. He has a rap sheet for conning environmentalists so he can set up billion-dollar resorts next to national parks and wildlife refuges his family started. Biographers Peter Collier and David Horowitz describe the character of Lawrence S. Rockefeller. Lawrence Rockefeller had a controversial reputation for saving the environment through conservation, while at the same time exploiting the very lands he was vowing to protect. His entire reputation is sealed in his contradictory forms of exploitation. He sponsored growth at the expense of the environment, even as he was giving money to create parks, and this seemed the biggest contradiction of all. He was carving luxury resorts out of the wilderness.
Lawrence, who had inherited his grandfather's business touch, was a pioneering venture capitalist. He invested in aviation, new technologies, and built tropical resorts with an eye to conservation.
Conspiracy, the Rockefellers are always involved in this phony environmentalism.
Are you going to make me do more autopsies on all of these people?
Yes. This could be how we find out the truth on everything. Roswell, the black sites, Area 51.
The Rockefellers. Everybody knows they smell like old cheese and dead fish.
I want to talk about UFOs, popular culture, and the quest for world government. It's a very paradigm-shifting path to power. Now, Lawrence Rockefeller is on record as having had meetings circa 1993 with Hillary Clinton and a number of advisors during his efforts to push the Disclosure Project, which he had funded and backed through the likes of figures like Stephen Greer.
Dr. Stephen Greer heads up the Disclosure Project, a group that compiles information from people who say they've encountered extraterrestrial forms of life.
Who brought forward government and military experts who had knowledge and were pushing for official declassification.
Now, a group of scientists, former Air Force and FAA officials, is lending its voice to the argument that we are not alone.
Group gathering here in Washington to talk about their UFO sightings, but this apparently is no crackpot convention. Former high-level government and military officials are among those sharing what they've seen in the sky.
Of any secrets the government might have on extraterrestrial life, UFO crashes, and anything else that fits the bill. Lawrence Rockefeller? Did it have something to do with the Disclosure Project? Stephen Greer? Because they were all at the same meeting.
What meeting?
The one with Hillary Clinton at the Rockefeller Ranch. The one where they met to discuss disclosure of government-held UFO secrets. The book in her hand, Are We Alone? They were meeting on UFOs.
I don't know. Maybe we should go check that out. The organized push for disclosure under the Rockefeller Initiative worked its way through exopolitics, with Washington taking on the question of extraterrestrials. Lawrence Rockefeller wrote to and eventually met with President Clinton in the White House. Rockefeller wrote a memo titled Lifting Secrecy on Information about Extraterrestrial Intelligence, requesting that Clinton review the government policy on this information, pleading that, quote, as our first post-Cold War president, you have an opportunity to take an important step without the national security restraints that may have hindered past presidents from coming clean. Noting the cynicism towards government held by popular culture, Lawrence Rockefeller emphasized the opportunity for a, quote, new spirit of partnership between the government and its citizens. Clinton obliged, writing an Executive Order 12958, which directed that all government records of historical value in those 25 years or older be immediately reviewed and declassified, though national security exceptions remained. President Clinton also mused that he, too, wanted to know the truth about Roswell and UFOs.
I don't know if you all remember this, but there was actually, when I was president my second term, there was an anniversary observance of Roswell. Do you remember that? People came to Roswell, New Mexico from all over the world. And there's also a site in Nevada where people were convinced that the government had buried a UFO and perhaps an alien deep underground because we wouldn't allow anybody to go there. And I can say now, because it's now been released into the public domain, I had so many people in my own administration were convinced that Roswell was a fraud, but this place in Nevada was really serious. There was an alien artifact there. So I actually sent somebody there to figure it out. And it was actually just a secret defense installation, a labs, and doing boring work that we just didn't want anybody else to see. So I can't think of that.
But couldn't find out.
What I did say was that there really is no list, or there is a list. The secrets.
If there is one, I don't know it. I mean, the Roswell thing, I think, really was an illusion. I don't think it happened. I mean, I think there are rational explanations that I have succeeded, and I did attempt to find out if there were any secret government documents that reveal things, and if there were, they were concealed from me too. I wouldn't be the first president that underlings have lied to or that career bureaucrats have waited out. But there may be some career person sitting around somewhere hiding these dark secrets even from elected presidents. But if so, they successfully eluded me, and I'm almost embarrassed to tell you I did try to find out.
Despite their efforts, no proof or definite explanation of UFOs was released. CIA Director James Woolsey also met with the Disclosure Project individuals. He seemed sympathetic, but ultimately signaled that whatever the truth of extraterrestrials, it was behind the veil of secret government and above the reach of both President Clinton and the CIA director.
Here's the answer to your question. No. As far as I know, an alien spacecraft did not crash in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947.
If the United States Air Force did recover alien bodies in Roswell...
If the United States Air Force did recover alien bodies, they didn't tell me about it either, and I want to know.
Many sources claim that the president had been intimidated and even threatened against asking too many questions about UFOs. He told one reporter, quote, "There's a secret government within the government, and I have no control over it." Isn't Stephen Greer Rockefeller funded? However, I did find something rather interesting when I checked out Chris Carter, creator of the X-Files. Apparently, he had a consultant named John Mack who was taking money from Lawrence Rockefeller.
And what's all the more interesting about this effort for disclosure in the government is the eerie parallels to the pop culture phenomenon X-Files, which set the message that the truth is out there and really probably in many ways sought to find out if the public itself wanted to believe, did it want to believe in aliens. And it's a very compelling story, very good entertainment. It has a lot of the same themes that other crime and mystery dramas have pursued, but it goes much further. Fox Mulder is paranormal curious. He wants to find the truth about what happened to his sister, who he believes is abducted by aliens, and he has the unlikely partner of Scully, who's a complete skeptic who puts her faith in science and sticks only with the evidence, and together they uncover, well, many hints at the truth about UFOs and extraterrestrial life, but almost certain proof of government conspiracy and hiding the truth of the mysteries that are really out there. And it's a lot like the show that ran right before it, Twin Peaks, where although they acknowledge government conspiracies and corruption, they really put the FBI in particular and government agents in general in a positive light, emphasizing that some of them are not only good, but are willing to go into the unknown, into the distance, to do what's right and to save the day and find the truth about things.
It's a long story, but actually I prefer Denise, if you don't mind.
Mulder and Scully, just like Agent Dale Cooper in Twin Peaks, really put it all on the line for truth and justice. What a great government story.
A conspiracy to hide something from the American public.
And so X-Files becomes an important vehicle as a social message tool to explain government secrets and these plots to cover things up. And they mix science fiction with actual conspiracy.
Former White House Chief of Staff John Podesta was known among White House reporters as the unofficial leader of the X-Files Club in the West Wing of the White House, decorating his office with X-Files memorabilia. To date, Podesta remains perhaps the most vocal government proponent of UFO disclosure, even as he prepares to campaign for Hillary in 2016. Back in 1998, the Washington Post wrote, "If Podesta were ever to become a Washington celebrity, this married father of three would probably be acclaimed for his fanatical devotion to the X-Files."
I think it's time to open the books on questions that have remained in the dark, on the question of government investigations of UFOs. It's time to find out what the truth really is that's out there. We ought to do it really because it's right. We ought to do it because the American people, quite frankly, can handle the truth.
But it would seem while the X-Files was going on, the Clinton administration was really working towards disclosing alien UFO truths.
Oh, God. Fine. The importance of the Rockefeller family to the Clintons and their mutual fascination with UFOs led to President Clinton pressuring virtually every major cabinet and administration official to probe the issue, going so far as to appoint a deputy attorney general to the Justice Department specifically tasked with alien investigation. A close parallel to the X-Files series, where the character of FBI Assistant Director Skinner plays a conflicting role in both helping the shadow government cover-up and shielding Mulder and Scully's unending quest to uncover the truth. Whatever the truth, Clinton officials repeatedly sent the signal that answers were not forthcoming, and that whoever held the truth was behind a wall of secrecy, in a secret government that controls the public one and holds the truth hostage to a blind world of us little people.
I had someone show up at 3 a.m. on my doorstep bleeding with the name Rockefeller in their chest.
What? That sounds like an average Tuesday night at your house.
At least one figure from these meetings was known to be involved with the X-Files project. Paid Lawrence Rockefeller advisor John E. Mack, a very big proponent and believer in UFOs and extraterrestrials, was known to have consulted with Chris Carter on the series production.
That if one were to put oneself in the position of an alien or some visitor from outer space and look at the Earth, they would see that what we were about was destroying the greenery and the life of the planet and making it into a desert. That seems to be what we're good at, or what we're doing.
Meanwhile, there are numerous accounts of CIA, FBI, NASA, and other secretive government figures giving tips, encouragement, or plot lines to Chris Carter. And then there's the fact that Hollywood in general is known to have a CIA office who review scripts and give incentives for positive government spend and take away lures incentives like military equipment for big budget war flicks if they don't toe the line.
Fake news here. And not only that, Chris Carter tells a story, and I met the psychic who was hired by the CIA just to hang out at Hollywood parties and then go back and drop emails about what she talked about. And this was the CIA keeping tabs on producers and writers.
And curiously, we find that a lot of real-life examples of government false flag events overlap with both the Clinton administration and the run of the show X-Files, both of which came on the heels of the end of the Cold War and the end of the communists being an enemy who we can all join together to fight against. Instead, it was the beginning of the age of the fight against terrorists overseas and also domestic threats at home. During the Clinton administration, we saw these events.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
End of the Cold War. The February 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center, beginning the nebulous age of radical terrorism.
An explosion underground in the garage section of the World Trade Center in New York City has killed now 3 people, according to the New York Port Authority.
The Waco siege.
We begin this morning at the scene of the headquarters of that religious cult called the Branch Davidian, just outside of Waco, Texas.
The 1995 Oklahoma City bombing.
You have also talked about more bomb threats around the country, one at an IRS office in Boston, another one at the federal building in Fort Worth, Texas.
Ruby Ridge and other standoffs with militia and patriots.
Are you proud of yourself? Are you proud of yourself?
And finally 9/11, which took place as the X-Files was winding down and just after its spin-off The Lone Gunman aired a pilot episode with a chilling plot similar to the false flag allegations that would follow the worst terror attack ever on American soil. It seemingly predicted the attack on the Twin Towers by a rogue government conspiracy some 6 months beforehand.
You're saying our government plans to commit a terrorist act against a domestic airline? There you go.
Lone Gunman star Dean Haglund spoke out about the episode.
Pilot episode for The Lone Gunman, where the basic plot was the gunman had to stop a plane from flying into the World Trade Center 8 months before it actually happened. And part of that plot was that, as it said in the script, that this was to start an international war on terror.
My first thought that morning of September 11th was The Lone Gunman. I was stricken with the thought that maybe we, could somehow inspired it in some way, and I was greatly relieved to learn the plot that existed long before that was on network television, and then disturbed that if we could imagine it, our government didn't, and I didn't understand why we weren't prepared for a tragedy like that.
The extraterrestrial and UFO question evoked the Trump card, with the potential to override all other concerns in war, diplomacy, and politics.
I was introduced to the late Dr. Werner von Braun in the U.S., the father of rocketry. In my first meeting with him, during that first 3.5 hours, he said to me, "Carol, you will stop the weaponization of space. There is a lie being told to everyone that the weaponization of space is now first being based upon the evil empire, the Russians. There are many enemies," he said, "against whom we're going to build this space-based weapon system. The first of whom was the Russians, which was existing at that time. Then there would be terrorists. Then there would be third world countries. Now we call them rogue nations or nations of concern. Then there would be asteroids." And then he would repeat to me over and over, "And the last card, the last card, the last card would be the extraterrestrial threat."
After a century of peacetime propaganda against the population,
You have to know what happens when an atomic bomb explodes.
it is no coincidence that an alien invasion would follow terrorism and wars across the map. Communism, the Cold War threat of nuclear annihilation, 2 bloody world wars, and an elitist corporate quest for world government. Will mankind be duped with the ultimate truth only to be controlled in a new dimension of cynical global politics? It certainly looks like the powers that shouldn't be were setting up a mind-bending paradigm shift that would change everything, through the revelation of beings from another planet. But for now they haven't. Are they just waiting until enough people want to believe? On April 17, 1995, Clinton issued his executive order on declassification of materials. 2 days later, on April 19, 1995, the highly suspicious Oklahoma City bombing destroyed the federal Murrah building, which housed FBI offices and allegedly much evidence. Strikingly parallel to real-life events, the first X-Files film, released in 1998, depicted a government inside job in the bombing of an FBI building in Dallas that held evidence of extraterrestrials, appearing very reminiscent of the Oklahoma City bombing.
I'll do you one better, Scolder. It's not just about the black site secrets of alien encounters. It's about world government. A plot to get the New World Order they've been pursuing for decades. The United Nations, a one world government, all united not by terrorism or the Cold War, but the invasion from outer space.
Are your ideas for global takeover falling apart? Is false flag terrorism fizzling out? Get disclosure! Cleansing the minds of the unwashed masses with a tantalizing, terrifying, taxable new reality.
I think the Patriot militia groups we mocked in 3 episodes back are right. This is all about a one world government conspiracy and a currency movement.
Molly, they were crazy and they dressed up like hookers.
But what is really being covered up and what is being hidden? Is it alien secrets or just government secrets they don't want the public probing into? And is cover-up the only motive anyway?
Because it's a government conspiracy?
What do they expect to gain?
The public's compliance for a mind control experiment?
No, they want that in the background. This is bigger than that. It's for world government. It's everything the League of Nations and the United Nations can never be until now. Until now, after terrorism, after communism, and with the presence of extraterrestrial life. There's also the motive for world government. And certainly the Rockefeller dynasty has been deep inside of it. They donated the land that became the United Nations building. They've been behind a lot of the big United Nations pushes, including Agenda 21, and the family has been involved in Bilderberg's quest to tie the world together under one single power. What happens when you cross two breeds of pure evil together? David Rockefeller and other members of the family have been involved in the Bilderberg Group, working behind the scenes to create an alliance for global control, and have been involved in founding dozens and even hundreds of groups involved with uniting the world and pursuing various causes, which they help to manipulate and hope to ultimately convert to the power for a one-world government. The perception of an invasion that would make all the masses submissive. That's what my source said, that clandestine directed energy weapons were going to bring about an alien hoax. What if Lawrence Rockefeller wants to use this disclosure event to create an organization bigger than the United Nations? Henry Kissinger is practically the family's pet, and he gave that statement that was recorded at Bilderberg about how an alien invasion, a threat from beyond, would unite the world under the United Nations. And Reagan said practically the same thing in a speech at the UN.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Molly, the government loves us. They would never do any of the things you just said.
Tell that to all the women you met in the last 5 episodes while you had a chip in your brain. Now you can't even find them. They're disappeared, taken by the government or the aliens or both.
Or they just went shopping.
You get the whole alien for $1. Well, there's been a whole tourist industry around the whole Roswell thing.
Oh, it's been big. We've been in business 23 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well look at this alien.
Pretty interesting, I guess.
Break.
There used to be more of the alien thing to see and do in Roswell.
Yeah.
It's just the businesses come and go. They open up and expect to be rich in a year.
Yeah.
Well, we've been in business 23 years and we're not rich yet. But that's not our expectation either. We have a lot of fun with this. We really enjoy it and enjoy the people that come in from all over the world.
Molly, I follow the science.
Follow the money, Scolder. The Rockefellers are stinking rich with it. Of course there's money to be made in an alien conspiracy. Even just a gift shop in Roswell would net you a couple thousand a day.
Maybe I'm in the wrong business.
Ultimately, they too became players in their own drama. The Clinton administration, the Rockefeller faction, even the whistleblowers in government, putting forward the idea and playing into their own drama, the idea that they themselves are the good faction trying to expose things in government, but it just can't be done. They can't go above their rank. They can't access what's really going on. They're putting out the idea that they're on the side of the people, that they too want to know, they want to believe, but they just can't get disclosure because they don't have control over those areas. And in many respects, it's true, they're puppets of the system, there are strings behind it, and the Rockefeller-Clinton connection itself helps to show that. But they want so badly for people to buy into the white hats that you see such a parallel between the dramas on TV, fighting for disclosure, fighting for truth, trying to do the right thing in a corrupt system, and the way it really played out as far as inside the White House and the show drama of politics.
You're gonna make us go to the United Nations, aren't you?
Scolder, the land for the United Nations building was donated by the Rockefeller family.
How do you expect to get in? It's a restricted area. There's no trespassing and photography is prohibited.
With our FBI badges.
Look, Molly, I know you love to wave your FBI badge in people's face and scream about aliens, but, it's Hillary Clinton. She's running for president. No one can ask her any questions. Not you, not anybody.
Pack your bags, Scolder. We're going to the United Nations.
This is truly a celebration.
Yes, the United Nations, and after that, well, make sure you pack a bag, because then we're going to Wyoming, the Grand Tetons. Haven't you ever heard of the Earth Star? Some say it's the key to everything. That's where the Rockefellers set up their private ranch and their big donation.
Fine. We'll go to the freaking United Nations, because I wasn't busy. I didn't have like a date this weekend or anything. It wasn't like I was going to do something with myself other than follow you around. Lawrence Rockefeller! We knew you weren't dead. Put down the alien clone and step away. Step away. Step away.
The alien scenario has already been put out there by numerous politicians as a means of control.
Think of how all the differences among people on Earth would seem small if we felt threatened by a space invader.
And now we hear in the news just today, this week, that they've slid in another enemy. Only this time we're going to protect our satellites. In other words, we have to have some reason to spend these trillions, to waste these dollars on a space-based weapon system, and they're all lies.
Thanks to the Hubble telescope and what we know about black holes in the universe and all of that, the dimensions of physics are such that I would be quite surprised if in the lifetime of people that are no older than 30 here, we don't discover some form of life in another universe.
What's so bad about a world government? Are you going to make me do more autopsies on all of these people?
Yes.
David Rockefeller! You will never finish what your brother started. Put down the alien clone and step away. Are you like 150? That's not natural.
I read on the internet that the aliens probably took the gold from the Federal Reserve. They can carry 5 bricks each.
The internet? I just read on the internet that Bruce Jenner's a woman named Caitlyn. While you're at the United Nations, can you get me some freedom fries, please? I'm really hungry. Lawrence Rockefeller has not kidnapped your sister. I'm not going! Do your own autopsy!
I got one better for you. It turns out the smoking man's DNA matches that of Lawrence Rockefeller and Hillary Clinton.